The Supreme Court judgment that the liquidation process of the Post newspaper under Lewis Marshall as a liquidator was illegally done has fallen short of giving the status of the once critical tabloid. In answering this question, the court judgment did not touch on the resumption of the newspaper company. What has been said in the judgment is that the actions of the liquidator Lewis Marshall, proud to and post the purported liquidation, have no legal effect whatsoever. But as things stand, the newspaper is non-existent, at least in the physical aspect. The closure and subsequent liquidation was triggered by 54 million kwacha tax dispute with the Zambia Revenue Authority and the newspapers who filed for insolvency in demand for their salary arrears. A renowned lawyer, Elas Musha, holds the view that the future of the Post newspaper lies in the decision of the lower court.
Right from the language of the decision itself, it's very clear that the Post Newspaper Limited is still in liquidation. There's been some that are saying that, no, it's back up and everything like that, but I don't think that's what the decision has said. The decision has said that it's still in liquidation and it's in fact being sent back to the High Court to comply with provisions of the law, to comply with provisions of the Insolvency Act and the Companies Act, because of course the liquidation of the Post straddles two different statutory regimes. So they are trying to send it back to the High Court so that the High Court can begin the process again. So because the liquidator is still in charge, right? Unless the High Court may have to discharge the liquidator and perhaps appoint a new liquidator. After that is done, perhaps the new liquidator is going to say, we're going to continue running. But this is not a very straightforward question. If you are the Post, what are you going to think? Are you going to just resurrect and begin operating? What happens to your debt situation? ZRA was on you a few years ago. If you just revive yourselves back, are you going to pay ZRA back? How is that going to be treated? And so I think we still have a lot more time to know exactly what is going to happen.
The Supreme Court judgment, on the other hand, means that all the activities done by Mr. Marshall leading to the liquidation process are a nullity to the Supreme Court. This is because the legal provisions were not followed. They will have to reopen in the High Court before a different judge to relook at the liquidation proceedings with a view of ensuring compliance with the relevant legal provisions. According to the court, the action shall be between the original parties as they were when the petition was filed, but with an inclusion of Lewis Marshall to appear as a third party to the proceedings in the High Court. With this directive, the Post newspaper, with its stern editor-in-chief Fred Membe, will need to wait for the decision of the lower court as regards the future of the company. Dr. Membe had appealed to the Supreme Court, contending that he had not been availed the chance to be heard in line with the rule of natural justice. As hearing for the lower court commences, some of the assets of the paper remain sold while nothing much has changed at the newspaper company's plant in Lusaka's light industrial area. For now, it's a wait and see on what will result from the court ruling. And interestingly, the court will probably know how much some of the assets of the company were sold at during the liquidation process. Darius Jonya, Diamond News.
Legal minds and ordinary citizens are still digesting the implications of the landmark ruling of the Supreme Court on the liquidation of the Post newspapers. In 2016, one of Zambia's leading newspaper, which arguably had the highest circulation, was closed following a dispute over 54 million kwacha tax bill. This later saw several workers of the newspaper company apply for its liquidation in the High Court, claiming 785,000 kwacha in salary arrears. The move was criticized as politically motivated due to the paper's criticism of the then Patriotic Front government, and this was meant to a general election. 6 years later, The Supreme Court judgment has declared the insolvency of the Post newspaper illegal, opening a canister of arguments and varied interpretations. A check by Diamond News at the Patents and Companies Registration Agency, PACRA, has revealed that at the time of insolvency, Post Newspapers Limited was owing a number of financial institutions. Among the banks owed in various accounts are Investrust Bank PLC, Investec Bank Limited, Zanaco Bank, Intermarket Banking Corporation Limited, and Intermarket Banking Limited in mortgages. The records at PACRA indicate that Post Newspapers Limited is still active. In 2018, the liquidators of the defunct Post Newspapers Limited had promised to pay creditors after selling the assets of the company. Recoveries manager of the Post Newspapers Limited, Robert Chabinga, said he would start by paying secured creditors, former Post Newspapers employees, the Zambia Revenue Authority, and the creditors as prescribed by the Companies Act. The Supreme Court ruling in the case brings back to life Post Newspapers Limited, which according to records never died, as the status at PACRA indicates active. Therefore, financial liabilities in form of debts are as binding as they were before liquidation, but then the question is, who exactly is the winner of the Supreme Court ruling thus far? While Dr. Fred Membe, who is the major shareholder in the Post Newspapers Limited with 49,589 shares, may be given a chance for legal recourse, the story for creditors may not change unless the Post Newspapers Limited is ready as per their initial plan to settle its debt in installments. Another area worth pondering on is what will happen to individuals or entities who bought the assets in the previous liquidation exercise. These and many other questions may probably be answered as the case reopens in the Lusaka High Court to make this one of the closely followed court cases of our times. For Diamond News, Wenson Mavor.
Expel supposed evil spirits from a child. A father and 5 others, who includes a religious leader, have caused the death of a 14-year-old girl identified as Chipo Molomoga of Nanjua village of Iteji district in Southern Province. Police in Central Province have confirmed the incident. According to Central Province Police Commanding Officer Donald Mwandila, the girl's father, Gift Siainga Mbulo Mijero, and 5 others took the girl to an evangelist at Zion Church for religious ceremony to chase demons, but in the process ended up causing the death of the girl through suffocation. The girl was made to sit on the ground and a pot containing hot stones placed between her legs. Mr. Mwandila says then the girl's father was asked to pour spirit and vinegar into the pot containing the hot stones, then covered the girl in a blanket, which the 5 men held tightly to capture the steam. He says due to this process, preliminary investigations, the girl was burnt and suffocated to death.
Chipo Mulomoka, aged 14 years, a grade 7 pupil at Manga Primary School, died after being suffocated with the steam of methylated spirit and vinegar on a hot stone. Upon receiving this information, police visited the scene and the body of the deceased was found lying in a thatched house on the ground. Upon inspecting this body, it was discovered and observed that it was in a decomposed state and had multiple burns on the chest, face, right thigh, left knee, and on both hands. The disease was suspected to be spiritually possessed, and that led to this suspect conducting their activity on this child with a view to remove the evil spirits according to their thoughts and plan.
And the Teji Member of Parliament is sad at the development.
Having a death of a young person of that age is quite disheartening, and my appeal is to the traditional leadership, religious groupings, to ensure that some of these acts, in the way that we perform them, we need to strongly revisit them and ensure that all acts that are done, whether they are religious or traditional, they should ensure that the way they are being practiced, they respect the rights of children and the rights of women.
The 14-year-old girl has since been put to rest. Helga Chibwe, Diamond News.